Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy belated Canada Day. What a wonderful week of weather we've had. I hope you are all keeping well and healthy amidst all this crazy COVID stuff. My name is Sharon Parenteau, and it's my great pleasure to have all of you here today. Thank you for taking the time to join us for our Decluttering Battle Plan webinar, part 1. Look at that happy couple. Those models, they have no clutter, I'm pretty sure, but the rest of us in the real world actually do. So I just want to share with you some resources that I hope you will find to be inspirational and motivational, and really come to grips with what is holding us back in terms of having too much stuff in our lives, and everyone is in the same boat. So this is a judgment-free zone. I don't want you to feel intimidated. Please ask questions in the chat box, and we're going to make sure that you get everything that you need to help you win the battle against too much stuff, as I said. So let's get started. So we have our introduction here. My name is Sharon Parenteau. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams. I'm not a professional organizer, and I'm pretty sure my teenagers are laughing, thinking I'm doing a webinar on decluttering. But what I've noticed as a realtor is that this is the #1 thing that holds people back in homes that are no longer serving their ultimate needs and goals for retirement and beyond. So that's the first point. The second point is that it's the #1 thing you can do to increase the value of your home. So from both standpoints, a quality of life standpoint and just the freedom aspect. So we created this as a seminar in person in a variety of communities that we service. But with COVID, we've had to adapt, and that's pretty cool actually, because we all get to sit at home, sipping tea or whatever, water, and get to learn together regardless. So thank you again. Really believe in the power of education and information to help people, because the majority of my clients are people who have not sold a house for a very long time. And things have changed so much with the introduction of technology that I started literally going and knocking on doors where I live in Richmond Hill. And I heard the same questions over and over and over again. So I thought, well, why not have people come together, and today I can talk to a bunch of you rather than just one off. So it's wonderful to have you here, and I hope you find today helpful. We welcome your feedback. So here we have the order of events. Welcome, introduction, check, and we're going to talk about some of the higher level thinking regarding clutter at the beginning, just to kind of help you recognize it for what it is. And then we'll get into some more hands-on strategies by the end of our seminar today. We'll leave a time for question and answer. And then we'll also get into some real nitty-gritty lessons next week. Okay, so it's kind of a 2-part series. Today we're setting the stage, giving you some overall strategies, and next week we're going to come back strong with some really practical application. Okay, so let's get started. Oh, and then finally we'll have some of our other offers. Our offers are always no cost, no obligation. It's really what we do to give back to the community that supports our business. So that's our joy. More beautiful model people. As I mentioned to you, so many people who I encounter are in homes that are too large for them. They have maintenance to contend with, they have expenses to contend with, and it's usually the issue of clutter and stuff that is keeping them in a place where they don't necessarily want to be. And that's because your stuff and your clutter and your overabundance is really a multifaceted situation. Lots of people find that they are feeling overwhelmed by the task of tackling that garage or that basement. There's always kind of a zone that becomes the dumping ground for all of our stuff. And then when you look at it, it's just overwhelming. And what ends up happening is people push off the decision to the future. They don't have the physical resource or maybe the emotional resources, and they just say, oh, well, someday we'll get to it. And then ends up that someday turns into never. And the situation just doesn't get better over time. It tends to get worse. Now, as we all know, our homes are intended to be a place of sanctuary and haven. And in this situation with COVID, protection from the world. But it doesn't feel that way when you're living in a home that doesn't suit your needs anymore. It feels more like you're being held hostage in a home. I encounter so many people that say to me, oh, I would definitely move if only I didn't have to deal with that problem of my basement. And that's really a shame, because you deserve to enjoy life to the fullest. You deserve to live your best life, to quote Oprah. You're gonna hear a lot of Oprah today. But to really have the best and get rid of the rest, and then take that into the next phase. And that's what we hope to inspire you to do today. So clutter comes with a very high cost in multiple ways. As much as decluttering and downsizing has all kinds of different emotional, practical, financial ramifications, so does clutter. So let's look at those a little more carefully. The high price of clutter. How much does it cost you to keep the stuff? Well, first of all, sometimes it really impacts your social life. You feel like you can't have people over, or without making a lot of apologies and saying, that you're slightly embarrassed or whatever by your space. So many times I go into homes with the intention of speaking to people about listing them. And the very first thing when I open the door is they say, oh, don't mind the mess. We're getting ready. We're packing. Okay. So if that's kind of the state where you're getting more and more restricted in your social sphere because of your stuff, that's a huge cost. Then there's also the cost to your downtime. Is your home feeling safe and relaxing, or do you look around and it's just anxiety provoking? And what about cash flow? There are some really significant financial impacts to having a home that you have to go and buy duplicates of to be able to service it. How many screwdrivers do we end up going back to Dollarama for because we can't find the one we need, right? And so we have a really good one, and then we go off and we buy a cheap duplicate because we just need it right now. We can't find it. Everybody has the same issue. Nobody is immune from this. And then we also, we joke where people who actually park in their garage are such a rarity these days. You park in your garage? Wow, that's amazing. So many of us use our garage as an overflow, or basement is just a dumping ground. And it's not intentional, and it doesn't make us bad people. It's just what happens when we get busy with life. So when we declutter, the other benefit is we spend less time actually trying to maintain the house. It's much easier to maintain. And this is an interesting statistic. I've heard it in multiple sources. And that is that the average person spends a year of their life looking for lost items. For me, it's usually my glasses. I need my glasses to find my glasses. And it can be very frustrating and just, drag you down. It's something you don't need. So that is all of kind of the intangibles, but also we did mention the financial impact. There's a lot of people who can't keep ahead of their bills properly because they place them, and I'm 100% guilty of this. I am a piler rather than a filer. And so the due date comes and we're in penalty, or we have to pay interest because we haven't paid the bill on time. And do you know, this is really super interesting to me as a real estate agent, that the fastest growing segment of commercial real estate in the United States, because we have good statistics on this, is the storage business. Every new community, it seems we pop up, we've got a Walmart, a Tim Hortons, a nail salon, and then a storage facility where people are really just deferring the problem. I've really cautioned against this. I've counseled against this with my downsizing clients. Don't just stuff it in a storage container, like a storage place, because guess what happens? You don't end up dealing with that, right? How many of these storage war shows do we have to see before we realize that putting it into storage is supposed to be a short-term band-aid solution, and it ends up being a long-term cost. So what I'm going to ask you is, what is it costing you to live in a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 2,500 square foot storage unit? And you know what? We are all in this boat. I hope that's one lesson that is coming through loud and clear, is that we're all there. But you're living in a storage unit for your stuff, not just your stuff though, right? Am I right? We have some of our adult children's stuff that didn't fit into their 500 square foot condo downtown. Many of us have downsized our parents, or we have remnants of our grandparents' estate that we have. And so it's not just our stuff, it's kind of like multi-generational stuff that we really want to deal with. And I love this bottom banner, the footer here of this slide. Are you getting more out of your possessions than it takes to maintain them? We've all heard this, where it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time we wear 20% of our clothing, right? And yet we hold on to the other. Why? Why do we do that? Why do we keep the things, well, when I lose that extra 10 pounds, or, I spent a lot of money on that outfit, or whatever it is, and yet we hang on to it and it never gets used. So I love this little cartoon. It speaks to so many of us. I need a book on decluttering. I can't find the other 2 I borrowed. Isn't that the truth? How many times we can't find what we're looking for and end up having to go get a duplicate, or in this poor gentleman's case, a triplicate. Okay, so let's see if we can't attack this at its source. So one of the things we have to analyze, we know that it comes with a cost. You're here because you recognize on some level the cost of what it takes to, to hold on to this stuff. But like I said, we all have it, and your reasons for having it are individual to you. But let's read through some of these blockages to decluttering and see what we can brainstorm together. So in the red, it's the block. And one thing is that just because we think it doesn't mean that it's necessarily true. It feels true, but it doesn't mean it's the truth. So let's counter the red with the green, okay? So it's kind of a color-coded graph here, where it talks about one of the common feelings of why we hang on to clutter is because we feel guilty. Like somehow we are being disloyal to the person who gave us. Maybe we inherited furniture from our parents or our grandparents, and we feel guilty that it's somehow dishonoring their memory to get rid of it. But what you should keep things for is that you actually like and want and use. So guilt is a false, there's such a thing as false guilt. And I think we can really apply that to issues related to clutter, keeping things we don't like or want or use because we feel guilt. And then very similar, alongside of the emotional kind of baggage that results in literal physical baggage, is the idea that we have a sentimental attachment to things. I am guilty of this. And it's so funny because when my eldest daughter moved back home, one of the things we talked about was getting rid of the things that I had been hanging on to, including whole boxes of school crafts. Crazy stuff. Not all of it. Oh, and I have 4 children. So like the first child gets way more. And then by the end, I don't even know where her report cards are. But what we designated was a limited amount of just keeping our favorite things in 1 or 2 bankers boxes and getting rid of the rest. You know, what we did was we literally took snapshots of things on my phone, and then I was able to discard it. It was so cute. I shared it with them, their first scrawling, you know, attempts at writing their name, and some of the very creative spelling they do in elementary school. So that's what we did. I allowed myself to keep the very favorite things in a limited amount, and when the box was full, to put something in, something else had to go out. Now, from the emotional to like just the pragmatic, practical side, many people hang on to stuff because they say, I might need it someday. I encounter this in basements all the time when we're getting ready to list a house for sale. Behind the furnace, we've got shelving and pieces of trim, the door frame or quarter round, whatever it is. It's stuck back there because somebody might need it someday. Well, that's fine. But I want to give you 2 counterpoints to that. Number 1, put an expiry date on it. If you haven't used it by X date, then out it goes. Okay? The other thing is, to make yourself feel better about getting rid of it, just remember that you are resourceful, you are affluent just by nature of the fact that you live in Canada. If you needed a replacement desperately, you could afford one, right? So take a category, work on getting rid of the things that you haven't used, and if you ever were to actually need it again, you could afford to go get a replacement. So this is my one exception to the idea that it's going to cost you money to keep clutter, right? So very often we don't end up needing it at all, and we're better off for the extra space. Now, here's another thing on the middle left. You spent good money on it. Now, when we have a car and it's come to the end of its natural usefulness for us, we have no problem trading it in for something we like better, something newer, something that serves us better. And we often say to ourselves, oh man, that car, it owes me nothing. I had a Hyundai Santa Fe, and at the end of the time that I owned it, I thought, wow, that was a great car. It owes me nothing. Why don't we say that with other things? If you've got an extra large sofa, a sectional sofa, or a big dining room set, if you've used it and enjoyed it and you're no longer doing either of those things, why not just get rid of it and say to yourself, well, you know what? It served its purpose. It owes me nothing. Is it enhancing your future, or is it holding you back? That's the thing that always has to be the criteria. Is it adding to your present and your future, or is it something that's going to keep you tied down? The more you own, the more it owns you. Now, the other thing is, I hear this frequently, oh, I'm saving that for my daughter. Well, number 1 question, do they know? Have you actually had the conversation with them? Well, I had the rocking chair that this glider rocker that I had, it must have 50,000 miles on it, that glider rocker, from having 4 babies. And I said to one of my daughters, oh, I'm keeping that. And they're going like, Ma, we don't want it. We don't want that stuff. Same thing with the cradle. They're going, Ma, that's not safe anymore. That's not safety code of today. That's, you know, we don't want that. So as soon as I realized they didn't want it, then out to the curb it went. And within a very few short minutes, 20 minutes later, it was gone. And that made me feel good. And then the third question is, if they know and they do actually want it, well, what's the retrieval plan? When are they coming? And this goes back to the idea of someday. We really do need to nail it down. What is someday? Is it 30 days from now, 60 days from now? Is it when they get into their own bigger house? And then the question becomes, well, is that okay by you? Because if not, maybe they need to make plans. And I think we've all experienced this, that our children, and to some extent our partners, our spouses, they really do respond to our level of resolve. When we are resolved to deal with this, you know, they really do get on side, and they're either going to have to deal with it and pick it up or find their own storage solution. And we're going to get into that in a minute. Okay, so the other thing is, some people say, well, that's an investment. Maybe it's a collection of something that you think has some value, that you're holding on to it. And the problem is that those kinds of things are very, as we say, illiquid. They're not liquid assets. You can't really use that coin collection or that stamp collection or those albums to really enhance your present day living. You're storing them. Like, books are not the expensive part, are they? It's the bookshelves. And if you think that you somehow have an investment here, well, my question to you would be, when do you plan to cash in that investment and actually enjoy the benefit of it? Lots of times things that we think are just junk are surprising and have value. We've all seen the Antiques Roadshow to know that one man's junk is another man's treasure. But it also it also works in the reverse. So lots of things, the treasures we think we have, are kind of just junk. So you really do have to know what you're talking about, and it might be worth having a professional appraiser come and help you with that decision, whether it's time to cash it in or keep and hold on to it. So then there's people who have luxury items, maybe things they've collected in their world travels or the various places they've lived. And the tchotchkes and the crystal are not what's going to give you an opulent, abundant life. They're just things. You know, Joan Rivers said famously, never love something that can't love you back. And no matter what you paid for it, if it's $1,000 vase or a $5 cut glass vase from Value Village, both of those are taking up valuable space. And so I just encourage you to let it go. Other personal reasons, and you know, these are very individual, but what is it that you would tell a friend in the same situation, right? That's the advice that you can give to yourself. And I know that some of us who have grown up in families where there was never quite enough, everything was always a hand-me-down, you know, the toys were from an older sibling. Lots of times those are the people who have the hardest time letting go of things. But I'm going to encourage you not to feel your security in your possessions, but in your future that you are architecting for yourself. So we've spent quite a bit of time here, but I think it really is important to debunk your so-called reasons so that you can find the motivation to step into the next phase. Son, I've been saving my best stuff for you. And what are we going to ask? The question we should ask is, do they know? Do they want it? And when are they coming to get it? Yes, one day, Cheryl, all this will be yours. What are the three questions? Do they know? Do they want it? When are they coming to get it? Okay, that's the mantra here. I love this. This is so true. I'm always envious when I see a neighbor with a dumpster on the driveway. Oh my goodness. You know what I really want for our 25th anniversary, Harold? A dumpster, 100%. I think that would be so great. Get it all done in one fell swoop. And sometimes we do that with homes when we're listing them for sale. Like, it's unfortunate, especially in an estate sale. If you've ever had to clear out a parent's or grandparents' or an elderly relative's estate, you realize how much of it just goes right into the bin. And it's sad but true. And I'm going to suggest to you that the other side of that is the freedom, and we're going to get to how we get there. So Here are our clutter busting strategies for successful home sales. I make no bones about it that I am coming to you as a realtor who sees this all day, every day, tons of times. And we do have some strategies to help you. This is going to be something that draws on my past as a former history and English teacher, that I've created a metaphor to organize our battle plan, this history metaphor of going into like an actual battle, right? And whenever famous military people had a battle to do, they didn't just like all of a sudden say, okay, well, like it's Thursday, let's go invade. It was a matter of planning, getting the resources, bringing everything together so that there was nothing to stymie your efforts and your motivation. So I really want to encourage you to start strong by, first of all, identifying the start date. We're at the beginning of a new month. It's a terrific time to get started. And we're going to make sure that we also tell somebody, both the people who are using our space as free storage, maybe that's a child, maybe that's a sibling. Hey, I still have china chest that you said you wanted. I'm telling you now, by the end of the month, I'd like you to come and pick it up. Doesn't have to be like 4 o'clock today, but let's give the people notice so that we, can get them on board. And then the other thing is we want to tell somebody in our circle that we intend to do that. So we're going to mark it on the calendar. We're going to tell some people, because studies show that you are way more likely to follow through with an intention to do something if you tell somebody else. It's like an accountability partner, right? So let's bring the people around us on board on this and recruit them for the battle. And we're also going to want to gather some supplies so that we are fully equipped. There's nothing more frustrating than having an intention to do something, but not having the supplies you need. So what do you need? Well, first of all, here's what I recommend. I really like the big, heavy contractor garbage bags from Home Depot. They're a little more expensive than the ones we buy for household garbage, but they're puncture proof and they often fit 2 or 3 more garbage bags in it. Town doesn't care. As long as they can lift it, it's not past a certain weight threshold, you can put all kinds of stuff in there, including those pieces of board and trim from behind the furnace, and they don't puncture. So that's cool. The other thing is, if for the things that you are going to donate or dispose of, we also want some maybe boxes from the grocery store, if you can even find them. Sometimes it's hard, but these are things that you don't mind using to put the donated items into, which we're going to get to, so that you can give them away. We're also going to want storage bins, preferably ones with clear lids, clear ones with lids, so that as we organize and sort things, it can go right into the bins. The other thing I like to have is a roll of painter's tape and a marker, like a Sharpie, so that we can put labels on things, trash or donate, or this is for Sarah, or whatever it is. So when we gather all those things, and lots of times I go over to one of the municipal centers here and I get the garbage tags, so that if I have multiple bags of garbage, they're not hanging around. I can just put them all out on garbage day, even if it's a couple of bucks per bag. Okay, so those are the things we typically recommend that you get: the resources to sort and the resources to be able to dispose of items, so that nothing is preventing you. And then I also wanted you to plan for a little victory for yourself, whatever that means to you, whatever your incentive is. I don't want this to be all drudgery and hard time and labor. This is going to be something where there's a reward at the end of it. Maybe the reward is you'll repaint the room, or you'll take yourself out to a patio for dinner, or whatever that looks like to you. Make sure that you build in, so that it's not all, they have 2 ways of motivating people, the carrot and the stick. We don't want just all the stick. We want to have a little bit of carrot there too. That's how we get donkeys moving. Okay, so now let's get into it. How are we going to start? We've put it on the calendar. We've told a friend. We've told our kids to come get their stuff. We've gathered up all the resources we need. We're figuring it out that we're going to get ourselves a really nice treat at the end of it. Well, we're going to start by taking back the territory one square at a time, if that makes any sense. We don't just try to cover the whole territory of, the entire house in one day or even a couple of days. We want to, first of all, make sure that we don't exhaust ourselves and that we don't exhaust our motivation, because also studies show that there's only so much motivation that we have kind of in the bank. Like our cup is only full to so much, and we want to make sure that we don't spend that never to regain it. How many people join the gym in January and how many people are still there in July? It's a huge drop off. So we want to manage our time and we want to take back the territory. So we're going to use a method called the Pomodoro method. And that was named after a European professor who was having trouble with his graduate students who were really, really struggling with their productivity. They have heavy workloads in terms of reading and papers, and they just were all over the place. And so what he devised was this method called the Pomodoro method, named after the little Italian, we all see the tomato timer. And what he found out was that by doing tasks for 25 minutes at a time, this was the ultimate inefficiency, that the human brain could focus on a task for 25 minutes. You would feel like at the end of the 25 minutes, you had accomplished something quite significant, but it wasn't overwhelming, and you could take a little break and then go back at it for another 25 minutes or so. So this seemed to be the absolute optimum amount of time, and that's what we recommend. We don't recommend 7 hours at the gym, right? You do a workout. So in this case, the workout is in the basement, and we're going to do 25 minutes. And that's way, it's not onerous. It's not, crippling physically. It's something that you can set the timer on your stove or on your watch or on your phone, and then do 25 minutes at a time. And at the end of that 25 minutes, have a drink, make yourself another cup of tea, whatever it is. And then if you want to go back, you go back. If you don't want to go back, you leave it for another day. Okay. And so we have a decluttering challenge that we're going to offer and tell you about at the end of our presentation today. And that's kind of the basis of how we've organized it. One task a day, every day for a month, and it's about a 25-minute task, okay? But the other thing you have to think of is where to start. I don't suggest 25 minutes here, and our 30-day decluttering challenge is kind of organized that way, but in general, if you want the maximum efficiency, you stay in one area until it's mostly done. And by mostly done, I mean like 85% done, 80% done. There's always that last little bit that is really tricky. You don't know if you want it, you don't know if so set up a little pile, but stay in the room where you need it the most. Again, it's about maintaining your motivation. If you start in your spice cupboard and then try to tackle the basement, it just doesn't work. You should start where it needs it the most and stay there. Okay, so this is based on research, evidence. It's not just my opinion, but take it with a grain of salt. As long as you're doing something, I guess that's better than nothing. But I kind of feel like if you scatter your efforts around the house, it's like being on a diet where you only cut out French fries. You get all the suffering, but you don't see any of the results. I'd rather you stay in a room and finish a room or an area, because it's like a reinforcement cycle where you see it and it helps you to be motivated to do the next and the next and the next. And since they get gradually easier or less important, is a reinforcement cycle. Okay, so speaking of reinforcements, you may need to call in some reinforcements. If you don't have the means or the ability to do this on your own, then this is a time to make some withdrawals in your social relationships in terms of all the times you have dog sat, house sat, the number of times you babysat, or baked the Christmas bazaar, or volunteered your time. You have people in your sphere who can be a resource here. And again, it doesn't have to be drudgery. It can be a bit of a party. We'll invite one of your grandchildren over for a home cooked meal, because God knows the last time they had that, and bring them in and just say, hey, while you're here, would you mind taking some of these boxes out to the garage for me, lifting these heavy things onto the shelf, or, could you help me with that? Or I also like the idea of bringing in the family to collect everything that they say you're storing for them. And maybe the draw is some time with you and a Sunday dinner. Like I said, everybody has these people around them who can help. And this is the time when you need the help, and ask for the help. That's really the hardest part for a lot of people, is acknowledging they need the help. And we're all used to being self-reliant and independent. Well, maybe the time now is to ask for those reinforcements to come and help you with this process. Again, there's no big surprise if you've told them about it, right? So these steps are sequential. You've told them that you want to declutter. You've told them that the house is getting too big for you and you need to think of eventually downsizing. But now is the time to help you get to that goal. And then if you don't have the people in your life nearby, like lots of us have children who live far away and they're not going to come and help us do a garage sale, right? That's just not realistic. There are a ton of companies that have sprung up to deal with this exact issue. There are resources that are available that we can hire as mercenaries to come in and bolster the troops here. And that looks like different things in different circumstances. Maybe it's as simple as hiring your grandson to do an online auction for you, or post pictures for you of things for sale, and then help you with a garage sale, or whatever that looks like for you. Just think outside the box and incentivize it for them. What teenager doesn't need pocket money these days? Kids' jobs are few and far between in the current economic state. So a bit of pocket money to help you with, selling some of those things online really is a big boon. But then there are also professional companies outside your realm that you can hire who will do everything. Let's just stop and think of what this looks like for a second. I'm going to explain it to you because it's a fascinating business model. This is what they do. First of all, they do as little or as much as you want. It's an a la carte service. So you only pay for the services you want. But let's talk about the full realm of what they could do for you. They come in, you tell them what goes, what stays, and they organize all the things that are to be sold into lots. They photograph them and document it. They take an inventory on a computer. They assign a code to it. And then they launch this on an online auction site that is very, very well publicized, very well attended. I've been to several of them myself. And people go online, bid on the items. When the auction closes, the highest bidder pays. Their credit card is already registered with the company, so there's a credit card charge. Then they have a specific time slot of 2 hours on a particular day to come and pick it up. And the people who you hired to organize this for you, they do all the interaction with the people. So you don't have to worry about strangers coming to your door to pick things up from Kijiji or whatever. So and then at the end of it, they give you a check or they transfer you the money. That is the remainder after their commission. Their commission's about 40%. But wow, if you had a whole house full of stuff that you wanted to get rid of, this is the way to do it, because it's easy, it's convenient, it's safe, right? If it's just odds and sods, well then, you know, donate or garage sale. But if it's a big amount of stuff, then these companies can really be the way to go. It's very, very interesting. It's an interesting model because they know so many boomers and zoomers and seniors are in this exact circumstance. So there's resources and we can hook you up with those. So again, it comes to picturing the positive outcome, just reinforcing, coming back to this picture of what decluttering can do for you. You're going to have less stuff, but it's going to be better stuff. It's going to be the stuff you really like, the clothes that make you feel attractive, the housewares that you're actually using. And if you make a choice, then I want to just reiterate the idea that there is freedom to and there is freedom from. Let me explain what I mean by that. You have freedom at our adult age to do many things, right? We all can determine the outcome for ourselves that we wish to have. So we're free to go and act on our desires and to create a future that's ideal. But we also need to be free from certain burdens and obstacles and obligations, right? Like I said, the more ties we have to our stuff, the more we are tied up in it. The more we own, the more owns us. And it restricts our future and restricts our options. So I really want to come back full circle to this notion that if you want to reduce the amount of items and stuff and furniture that you are moving into the next phase with, or even if it's just for right now, the magic formula is time on task over time. Just like all of these items did not magically appear one day, they kind of settled into your home over time, right? Like falling snowflakes that accumulate. Like a snowflake is tiny and yet it can be feet deep. We also have to reverse this process and gradually tackle it small amounts of time and consistently. Those are what's going to give you the biggest gains in your life, in your house, in your mental state. So it can be done. It just has to be something that you commit to, become accountable for, and establish a plan. Okay, so next week, like I mentioned to you, we are going to get into the real nitty-gritty of what I see day in and day out as a realtor and give you some specific checklists of things that you can start working on. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna, I have to mute myself. I just have to clear my throat. So just a second. I'm going to mute myself. Where is my little button here? Okay, well, I'll try not to cough in your ear. In the meantime, yeah, I'm just gonna cough. Okay, so in the meantime, I want to invite you all to come back next week. This will be back onto our normal webinar Wednesday. Today was Thursday because of our holiday yesterday, but we're back to webinar Wednesday to do part 2. And then we also have our webinars coming up about renovations and getting ready to downsize and staging. All of these are things that you can sign up for online, and we do these on Wednesdays from 1 to 2 p.m. The other thing that we do that's super cool, if you want to think about what is perhaps in your future, come on a condo tour with us. This is an interesting thing that, again, we used to do in person. We would travel in my minivan and we'd go look at maybe 5 or 6 or 7 condos in an afternoon from 1 to 3:30. Now we do them online, and we do them in our different neighborhoods, Markham, Thornhill, Richmond Hill, and Aurora. And what you're going to see is the interior of the interior pictures of the condos. It's going to show you what's on the market now. It will give you an idea what the prices are, what the maintenance fees are, and kind of the different options that are available in condo apartment land. We don't do condo townhouses, and we don't do condo detached houses in this tour. This is strictly condo apartments. And so lots of people I encounter say to me, well, condos are small and boxy, and we again created this webinar to be able to inform people what's really available, because otherwise, how would you ever see? Unless you have a friend who lives in a condo, you might not have ever been inside one, and you pass these buildings every day. So come with us, and we're going to show you what's inside, and we're going to help you to understand the condo market. And I'll give you a lot of tips and insider tricks when it comes to buying a condo. We also do property evaluations, again, remotely, online. A lot of the big question mark right now is, what is the real estate market like? What's happening to prices in my neighborhood? How much is my house worth? That can be a very important question to answer while you're charting the future. There's our decluttering battle plan. The challenge online, it's a set of day with a task. We created like a bingo card almost for the 30 days of the month. Every day is a new task. You get tips, inspiration. We've also created a wonderful Facebook group with more than 100 members now, a smart social connection group, just a way of keeping connected. And we're starting to open things back up again, but still many of us are battling isolation and loneliness. This is a place where you can belong. Nothing to do with real estate. We never create a big strong arm sales tactic. It's simply a matter of supplying people with the information they need so that when the decision time is right for them, they can make an informed, intelligent decision that really is going to suit them best in the long term. So we have an opportunity now. Will you be providing a copy of this Zoom meeting? I missed part of it. Yes, we will be. We'll be sending everyone who registered a link to the Zoom. We edit it and put it out to you. You'll also be receiving a workbook that we wrote to accompany this series. This again was when we were meeting in person. We would give everybody a copy of our workbook, and it reiterates what you've heard today, gives you some thinking points again, and help you to start that conversation first internally and then with the people around you about your need to get started on this. Are there other questions, please? You can type them into the chat box. I'm happy to answer. We have another couple of minutes about anything about decluttering, about real estate, about our other offers, you name it. I'm here for you. It's so nice to see some newcomers today. Thank you for being with us. That's always such an encouragement to us. We love taking care of the people in our S.M.A.R.T Realty Solutions family. And once you join us, you're a part of the family, but it's also lovely to see some new faces popping up today. So thank you for that. I hope you had a wonderful Canada Day. Hopefully some of you at least received our Canada Day flag oh, thank you. Thank you, Denise. I appreciate your kind comments. I hope some of you came here because of our Canada Day flag. If you received those in the mail, that was really, really fun. I love doing that. Every year we send those out. Okay. We will be sending you some follow-up resources, and at any point you have a question, whether or not related to this topic or another topic, I really want you to see us as your resource. we have, as part of our S.M.A.R.T Realty Solutions logo, the idea that we are we pull all the pieces together. So we have resources for you in terms of handy people or these companies that do the online auctions or whatever it is. Okay, so we're always here for you. We're just a call or a text or an email away. So thank you so much for being here today. If there are no other questions, we can end things a bit early and save our time for next week when we're getting into the nitty-gritty of it. Okay, so thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm gonna go declutter. I'm feeling quite motivated. What should I do? Not the spice cupboard. Oh, here's a little tip for those of you who have hung on to the bitter end. Don't start with paperwork. You'll never be seen again. We'll have to tie like a rope to your ankle and pull you back out because we won't see you. Don't start in the paperwork. Start in the basement. Maybe I'll go there now. Nice and cool. Okay. Thank you again. Appreciate you. Bye for now.